And news just coming in, the International Paralympic Committee has de-recognized Indian Federation because of the infighting that is on. Representatives of the International Committee had visited India earlier and found that the Federation did not have a united front. An email communication today said that they have suspended the Indian Paralympic Committee. Last week, the PCI had suspended its president Rajesh Tomar after the nationals in Ghaziabad were poorly managed. There was mismanagement. Due to the world body suspension that comes into effect immediately, Indian athletes will not be able to participate in any world event till the ban is lifted. And the Secretary of the Paralympic Committee of India, Mr. Chandrasekhar, now joins me for more on this. Sir, infighting has caused your committee being de-recognized. It's the sportspersons who will suffer the most.
That's right, sir. You are right. I agree with you. Earlier there was two parties fighting for the supremacy in PCI. Then it was finally decided in front of the ministry with the people coming down from Germany, also analyzing the fact as to who was the main contender to run the PCI. But now of late, because of one suspension of the Mr. Rajesh Tomar, they have concluded that there is an infight again like what it was before. Actually, that is not the case. There is a small infight within ourselves, but they have taken a decision, harsh decision on us in suspending. But
why can't you sink your differences? This is shameful. Infighting leads to the Paralympic players. It's the players who are suffering. Why can't you sink whatever your differences may well be?
Yeah, we do not have any this thing. We wanted to solve this issue. We had even called on Mr. Rajesh Tomar for compromise. He had not come down to the EC meeting. Later, the committee took a decision to suspend him and keep him under inquiry until the issue is being sorted out. So before anything could happen, things have gone worse.
Now what? Will you sink your differences? Will you be able to put a united front so that...
We will try our level best to sort out this issue. No, we do not want the participants to suffer.
When is the next...
We are on the job. We are sitting down immediately and working out on this. We are approaching the IPC people once again, telling them this is what has happened. There is no infight. There is no two parties like what they had seen earlier, so that the issue is being sorted out.
Mr. Chandrasekhar, kindly stay on with me. I also want to bring in my colleague Radhika Tongar. She's been tracking the story very closely. Radhika, this is extremely distressing. This is shameful. Infighting leads to the suspension and our players will suffer.
Yes, Gaurav. In fact, this is not something new as far as Indian sports are concerned. We've seen these problems with the Boxing Federation earlier as well. And like you mentioned, of course, it's the athletes who suffer. They are not able to participate under the Indian flag. Remember, when athletes in such conditions end up winning medals, the Indian national anthem is not sung. They participate under a general flag of the International Olympic Committee. So, of course, all those problems arise, and of course, athletes are the ones who suffer. As far as the PCI is concerned, the national games were obviously in Ghaziabad a disaster. Paralympic athletes suffered really badly. The conditions were really bad. And as a result of that, when Mr. Rajesh Tomar suspended 4 to 5 members of the executive committee ended up suspending him in their meeting. So obviously, there seems to be some problem within the PCI. If they are able to solve it and make a united front in front of the International Committee, that is when things could probably get resolved. Like Mr. Chandrasekhar was saying, that he will communicate it to the International Committee that as of now, they do have a united front and Mr. Rajesh Tomar has been suspended with the agreement of the ministry. Now, that is what the PCI stand is. Whether the International Committee agrees to it and whether athletes are again able to participate under the Indian flag, that will need to be seen.
The issue at hand here, if the Ghaziabad games were poorly organized and if Rajesh Tomar suspended some officials, was he well within his rights to do so? And is this infighting not costing the nation? Who can take action in this case? What's the sports ministry doing about this? Of course, these organizations are independent, but what control can be exercised if the infighting continues?
Gaurav, as far as the sports ministry is concerned, after the Ghaziabad games, what they had done was set up a committee and asked them to submit a report as to who was responsible for it. Mr. Rajesh Tomar obviously was suspended after he had suspended 4 members of the executive committee. Now, he as the president does have rights, but of course such decisions need to be taken with the majority consent of the committee, which didn't seem to have happened in this case, and that is why the executive committee went up against him as well. The sports ministry on their part, of course, these games are organized by these federations, but a lot of times the ministry funds them. Ministry every year allocates some amount of funds to all these federations. So of course, the ministry has a lot of say. The ministry can control these things. They haven't as of now. Of course, Rajesh Tomar's suspension was, something that was consulted with the ministry as well. The Sports Authority of India was in the know-how of things as well. But whether that was a good decision, whether that would change things, needs to be seen, because it is not one person, Gaurav, who organizes these games. It was the entire committee. It was the PCI which organized the games.
Mr. Chandrasekhar, Mr. Chandrasekhar, can you give us a time frame? When will you be able to remove your differences and at least come together in national interest, sir?
Well, it's not me alone can decide on this issue. All of us, we are for resolving the issue. Mr. Rajesh Tomar hasn't turned up, and hasn't kept in touch with us from a long time. That is bad on his part. We have tried to convince him. We have tried to send some people to talk to him. He's reluctant to talk to us. That's the big issue.
Okay.
And many of the press reporters have also told us we are unable to track him. His whereabouts are not known to us. They were asking me his addresses, which I am not knowing that also. It is he, as a president, should have that responsibility to come down, patch up the issues.
Radhika Tongar, my colleague, will continue to track this story very closely. For the moment, Mr. Chandrasekhar, many thanks for joining me here on Headlines Today.